Hello, welcome to Forest Focus. As Nottingham Forest links with one of the hottest properties in European football in Viktor Gyökeres. Is it fanciful that Forest could sign the Sporting striker? We'll discuss that reported interest in the Sweden international, as well as look at what kind of money Forest would make from playing in the Champions League if they get there, and what recent history tells us about what kind of business the Reds could do in Europe next season if they are at the top table. So a few things to get through today. As mentioned, try and give us some insight into what kind of money Forest could make if they're playing in the Champions League. And obviously, they're going to be linked with better players and probably sign better players as well, no doubt, if they get there. So, Viktor Gyökeres, pretty interesting transfer rumour, obviously. We shall have a look at some of his stats, some of his career so far. Obviously, he made his name in England, started off at Brighton, had a loan spell at Swansea, I think, then really took off at Coventry before making the move to Sporting Lisbon, where he's had two pretty unbelievable seasons. This season, 40 goals in 41 games. Last season, he was almost as prolific. He's 26, so he's in his prime years, and he's on a deal until 2028. He's been linked with loads of clubs: Arsenal, Chelsea, Man United, primarily in England. And he's a top quality player who would fit right into Forest's system. The way he plays would be perfect for us. So this transfer rumour, for if you haven't seen it, came from footballtransfers.com. They mentioned that Arsenal, Chelsea, United are taking interest in the 26-year-old, as are Forest, who it says he's intrigued by the prospect of joining Forest, apparently, and Forest have expressed an interest, which basically means I think this report has reached out to their camp and asked which players are interested. And I think Forest might have got a passing mention. How much is in it, I don't know. It's a bit like the Cunha one, I think. I think agents like to use Forest to get names interested. Put Forest's name out there, maybe smoke out a bid from elsewhere. Forest are an ambitious club. And I think Forest might quite like being linked with these players as well. So I don't know how much is in it. We'll wait and see. I think for me, it does say in this article, Arsenal, Chelsea, and United have switched their interests. It says the London outfits have turned their attention elsewhere, and United will struggle to get a deal over the line if they fail to qualify for the Champions League. The fee is around 58 million euros, which I think is about 50 million quid, which seems light to me. I thought he would cost more than that. So I would be skeptical that it happens. But it's the kind of player that is great to see us linked with. And it's not nonsense, because touchwood, we're going to be in the Champions League next season, and we're going to need to sign, an elite striker to be the successor to Chris Wood. So I don't think this will happen. And I still think that Forest's best avenue is to sign Viktor Gyökeres before he becomes Viktor Gyökeres as he is now. The kind of deals that we've been doing, but it's interesting to see us linked with the player, and if it does come off, then it'll be huge, obviously, and the owner's ambitious enough to go for this kind of deal. I'm sure I will always find myself recalibrating our ambitions based on his ambitions and the kind of players we sign when we sign Keylor Navas and things like that. But I do remain pretty skeptical this one will happen. So I went to look still. It got me thinking, and in our WhatsApp chat last night with Pete, Mark, and the others, we were discussing the kind of players we could sign, the kind of money it would take, and a bit of what we need to do. So I looked at the kind of deals that Newcastle and Aston Villa did in the previous 2 years after getting in the Champions League. So we'll have a look at that. But I wanted to try and kind of predicate the kind of that with the kind of money that you can make for getting in the Champions League. So I've got some charts here which will show, hopefully, what Forest have done and what they could do. So most recent accounts of Forest have their revenue for 22-23, the first season after promotion, at 155 million. But that would go up dramatically if they got in the Champions League. So the chart on screen here, horrendously cropped, sorry, but it shows the payments to clubs by the Premier League in the 23-24 season. This is the most recent I could find. And you can see, I'll just go through it for people who are listening or watching, and even people who are watching. There's a lot of numbers I appreciate. The headline is Manchester City received 175.9 million from the Premier League. for winning the league, and then it goes down incrementally from there. But the team who finished third were Liverpool, who got 171 million. Aston Villa, who finished fourth, got 162 million last season. And then you go down to Forest, who made finished 17th, 123 million pounds. So the gap between 17th and fourth is about 40 million. That's based on, you get an equal share of funding for being in the Premier League, which is 31.2 million. Then you get paid more the more you're on TV, basically. And then you get a merit payment for where you finish in the league. So the merit payments is domestic and international, and it adds up. So I think Forest made about 12 million for finishing 17th. If you finish fourth, that figure is about 48 million. So you get about 30 million pounds extra, plus the extra TV money, and then you get a central commercial deal. And so if Forest get into the Champions League, I think it's worth about an extra 40 million straight away, just in Premier League merit payments. So that kind of leads into the revenue for Premier League clubs and how much they made in total. This is a revenue breakdown for the 2022-23 season. Forest aren't into on this chart. As I mentioned, it was 155 million. Man City's revenue, this is the most recent ones I could find, is over 800 million. Manchester United just under 800 million, and then Arsenal, Liverpool, Tottenham, Chelsea are kind of quite far ahead of the rest. Newcastle and Villa will make more for breaking into that Champions League bracket, and they're already up there. Wolves, Fulham, Everton made about 200 million, and then West Ham are next. And I've got a different chart which shows West Ham and the benefit they made from Europe. But basically, a lot of clubs' commercial revenue, total revenue comes from commercial, which I'll just go into a little bit more details. This is from the Deloitte Money League as well, and it shows the European clubs and their total revenue for the most recent accounting period. Real Madrid broke the £1 billion barrier, and as mentioned, Man City 837 million total money made. And I'll just pick out a few of the English clubs. I mentioned Man City 770, Arsenal 716, Liverpool 714, Spurs 615, and then a couple of other interesting ones that made it into there. Newcastle 371 for playing in the Champions League, West Ham 322, and Aston Villa 310 million euros. So all that dwarfs our income. And I looked at where the money comes from, and for the biggest clubs, about half of it's commercial, and our commercial income is still dwarfed by theirs. So I know Forest have got quite a lot of betting sponsors and things like that, but you get in the Champions League and you can make more money from sponsorship, and hopefully you don't have to turn your attention to betting. That's a different debate. But the revenue that Forest would make would be huge. So one final chart on how much you can make. This is from Swiss Ramble on how much money clubs have made for competing in the Champions League after the last 16. This is just thus far. So clubs are going to make more money who are still in it. And the main takeaway from that is Man City made 64 million, Arsenal 86, Liverpool 82, and Villa 70. And that's just to get into the last 16. So Villa are going to make more for playing PSG, and Arsenal, I think, are playing Real Madrid, aren't they? So if Forest get into the Champions League and they get about an extra 40 to 50 million from the Premier League, and then an extra 70 million, then they're going to be making, 110, 120 million pounds, I think, from playing in the Champions League. So huge, that's almost doubling from that first season after promotion. So it shows how lucrative it is. There are things to offset it against, though. Things like contract bonuses, improved contracts for players, things like that. And PSR is still a massive complication. So I wanted to look as well as an indicator of the kind of business Forest could do in terms of what Newcastle and Aston Villa did, as mentioned, after they got in the Champions League. So I'll do that in one moment. Just a reminder, though, the next game is Brighton, FA Cup quarter-final. You can watch it live at the Trent Navigation on Saturday, the 29th of March. It's on TV. Obviously, it should be packed. Outdoor screens, indoor screens, barbecue and pizza kitchen, and Cascales are only £4. So if you're not watching at home or you're not lucky enough to have a ticket, then do go to Trent Navigation and enjoy it there. So, like I said, I had a look because we were discussing on the podcast the kind of business that Newcastle and Villa did very briefly. And I couldn't really recall exactly. I didn't remember them strengthening their squads significantly. So I went and had a proper look and at how much they'd spent. So Newcastle, excuse me, finishing fourth in 2022-23, went out the following summer and signed the following players. Sandro Tonali, 55 million, Harvey Barnes, 38 million, Tino Livramento, 32 million, Ikuba Minter, 6 million. They signed Lewis Hall on loan, and there was an obligation to buy him. So that went into the next accounting window for 28 million. So that's not included in a total spend of 131 million. Their outgoings, they sold Alan St. Maximin for 25 million. Chris Wood joined us for 15 million after his loan spell was made permanent. And former Forest goalkeeper Carl Darlow went to Leeds for 300,000. So in total, the net spend was 90 million pounds. They didn't really transform their squad. They'd already signed Alexander Isak. He signed a year before for 60 million. So obviously, we know Newcastle and Villa are constrained by PSR, UEFA versions of PSR around squad ratios and things like that. So they didn't go out and go nuts, which I think might be an indication of what Forest might do. Villa last season, I looked at what they did as well. I'd forgotten what an absolute basket case their transfer business was last summer, and this includes January as well. So this is the whole season. So I'll just go through what happened. So they went and bought Amadou Onana for 50 million, Ian Matson for 37 million. In the summer, they also signed Jadon Philogene for 13.5 million. They bought Cameron Archer back for 15 million, having also bought Philogene back. They also signed Samuel Illing Jr. and Enzo Berenechea from Juventus. That was for a combined 11.8 plus 6.7, whatever that is. Then in January, they also signed Ross Barkley in the summer. Then in January, they signed Daniel Marlin for 18 million and Andres Garcia for 6 million. As well as that, they signed Disasi, Rashford and Asensio on loan. I think Disasi had a £5 million loan fee. I don't know about Rashford and Asensio, but I assume they're paying towards their wages, which all comes under BSR as well. That was a total spend this summer. This season of 148 million. We know that they were in financial, walking up to the line of PSR. So some of their outs included John Duran for 71 million, Moussa Diaby for 50 million, Douglas Luiz for 45 million. Philogene, who they signed in the summer, they sold in January for 16 million. Cameron Archer seemed to go the next day for 16 million. Timo Abunam went for 9 million to Everton in the summer. Diego Carlos in January to Fenerbahce for 8.5. Morgan Sanson, a midfielder, went back to France for 3 million. And Viliami Sinisalo, a keeper, went for 1 million to Celtic, I think. And their loans out include Philip Coutinho, who I'd forgotten was still there, Alex Moreno, obviously to us, and then Illing Jr. and Berenechea, they went out straight away to Spain and Italy, I think. So their total sales were 223 million for a net spend of minus 75 million. So they've actually made a profit. So I think the reason I want to show this is try and give some context that I don't think we're going to go out and sign 10 players for, or 5 players for 250 million quid with no incomings. I think Newcastle and Villa, as mentioned, have much bigger revenue incomes than us. Obviously, we close the gap, but I wonder to what degree we would still spend. It's all speculation, and there's lots of nuances around it. But would we have a net spend of something like what was Newcastle's? Just bear with me, sorry. 90 million. Would our next spend be 100 million, 120 million? I don't know. Maybe some of that is funded by a big sale. Maybe we go the route of giving new contracts to Hudson-Odoi, Gibbs White, Nico Williams, Ola Aina, and boost our squad fundamentals, and then maybe make one big signing and 2 or 3 other signings around, an extra winger, an extra midfielder, an extra fullback, that kind of thing. I just wanted to give some kind of food for thought, basically, of the kind of business Forest could do based on what recent history tells us. I don't think I'm giving any answers here. I just wanted to kind of illuminate the picture a little bit in light of us being linked with Gyökeres, which is obviously fantastic and really interesting. But like I say, don't think it will happen, but it might be a sign of things to come, potentially. that we are going to strengthen our squad, and it's tremendously exciting. And we're buying from a position of strength, which is huge. That's one of the really big things. We can identify these players, and we're not doing what I think Man City did in January, and like, oh, we need a defensive midfielder, go out and buy someone, and they end up with Nico Gonzalez. They buy Marmoush, who's a really good player, but I think they might have wanted to do it in a more considered way, and we can do that this summer. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the business we do, especially if we're in the Champions League, because of the financial boost that has been outlined there. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Quick bit of housekeeping. Our next live show is on Thursday, April the 3rd at the Trent Navigation. The links to buy tickets I'll put in the description for this video. Tickets are only £5, so it's cost of a pint basically in the nav on the night. So I'll be joined by Lewis, Greg, Mikey, Temps, and Pete on stage. I'm sure it'll be a good night. Obviously, lots of good stuff to discuss. So if you're at a loose end on Thursday, April the 3rd, do come and join us. And I promise the live shows are really good fun. So yeah, do check that out. If you have enjoyed this one, do us a favor, hit like, hit subscribe, do consider channel membership or Patreon, or just a 5-star review just on Apple or Spotify would be lovely. Thank you very much. Right, we shall be back tomorrow. I've been speaking to fans of the other Champions League chasing teams to get their thoughts on their run-ins and the ultimate question of will they make the Champions League or not. So hopefully people enjoy that. And then on Monday, we shall return and maybe just have a more detailed look at our run-in in the company of the regulars. Tuesday, Nathan Joy's on potentially buying into Sao Paulo's youth system, Evangelos Marinakis that is, and his thoughts on Ramon Sosa's situation, Murillo in Brazil, Nico Dominguez in Argentina, some summer transfer chat potentially as well. And then Wednesday, Adam Summerton, the TNT Sports commentator, to give his thoughts on Forest, but more primarily I wanted to ask him about what the difference is between Premier League football, European football, how Forest might fare based on our style, and if we could upset the apple cart a bit there, whether we're in the Champions League, the Europa League, whatever it is, I'm pretty sure we're going to be in some form of European football. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Appreciate your company. Do hit like, as I say. And if we don't see you tomorrow, we shall see you soon.